The game used my webcam. It showed me what was behind me. I thought I was done with the game. After everything that happened, the faces in the windows, the thing in the hallway, the way the images started looking less and less like a game and more like surveillance footage, I thought deleting my browser history and installing an ad blocker would be enough. I was wrong. If you heard the first part of what happened to me, you know how it started. An ad. A stupid, mobile game-style ad that popped up while I was watching a video. Find the monster in the room. Sounded like one of those low-effort puzzle games designed to waste your time for 30 seconds before you could skip to your content. But the rooms were wrong. The images were too detailed. Too specific. And the monsters, the things hiding in those rooms, they weren't cartoon creatures or jump scare faces. They were subtle. A hand where a shadow should be. Eyes in the gap between a dresser and a wall. A mouth in the folds of a curtain. And every level got harder. Every level felt more personal. By the end of it, I was shaking. I closed the tab. I closed my laptop. I sat in my apartment with every light on and told myself it was just a game. That was 6 days ago. This is what happened after. The first thing I did the next morning was install an ad blocker. Not just any ad blocker, I went full scorched earth. uBlock Origin. Privacy Badger. I even installed a DNS level ad filter on my router. If that game was going to try to find me again through some targeted ad network, it was going to have to work for it. For 2 days, nothing happened. I want you to understand what those 2 days felt like. Because they weren't relief. They were anticipation. Every time I opened my laptop, my eyes went to the edges of the screen first. Every time a web page loaded, I watched the margins, the banner spaces, the spots where ads usually lived. I was looking for it. Part of me wanted to find it again, just to prove to myself that it was real, that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. But the ads were gone. My ad blocker was doing its job. And slowly, painfully slowly, I started to breathe again. On the third day, I told Derek. Derek and I have been friends since college. He's the kind of guy who builds his own computers, runs Linux on everything, and thinks anyone who doesn't use a VPN deserves whatever happens to them. If anyone was going to have a rational explanation for what I'd experienced, it was him. We were at a bar. It was a Wednesday. I remember because the place was almost empty, just us and a couple at the far end nursing beers in silence. I told Derek everything, the ad, the levels, the way the rooms got more realistic, the thing I found hiding in what looked like a photograph of an actual bedroom. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When I was done, he took a long drink and set his glass down carefully. "That's messed up," he said. "I know. No, I mean, that's actually messed up. Not in a you had a weird experience way. In a someone built this on purpose way." He pulled out his phone and started typing. Derek does this thing where he goes quiet for minutes at a time while he researches something, and you just have to sit there and wait. I watched him scroll. I watched his face change. "I can't find it," he said eventually. "No App Store listing. No website. Nothing on any of the ad networks I can search. Whatever served you that ad, it's not indexed anywhere I can see." So what does that mean? It means it was targeted. Specifically at you, or at a very small group of people. Which is not how ads work. Not usually. That's when Nina joined us. Nina was the skeptic of our group. She studied cognitive science in grad school before dropping out to do UX design, and she has this way of breaking down anything strange into component parts until it stops being strange. I've seen her debunk ghost videos, explain away sleep paralysis experiences, and talk someone out of believing they'd been abducted by aliens, all in the same conversation. Derek caught her up. She listened with her arms crossed, which is her thinking posture. "Okay," she said when he was done. "Here's a thought. What if it's not a game?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if the game part is the delivery mechanism, but the actual purpose is data collection? Think about it. You're shown an image of a room. You have to find the hidden threat. Where do you look first? Where do you look last? How long does it take you? What patterns do your eyes follow?" She leaned forward. "You're basically teaching something where humans look for danger. You're mapping our threat detection instincts. Every click, every hesitation, every place you check, that's data. And if something wanted to learn how to hide from us..." She let the sentence hang. "That's insane," I said. "Is it? We train AI on human behavior all the time. CAPTCHAs taught image recognition. Social media taught language models how to mimic human speech. Why not this? Show a human a room with a hidden threat. See where they look. Then use that data to figure out where humans don't look. The blind spots. The places our instincts tell us are safe." Derek was nodding slowly. "A predator optimization engine." "I didn't say that," Nina said quickly. "I said it was a thought. I'm not saying there are actual monsters learning to hide from us based on mobile game data. I'm saying the framework is interesting." But something in her voice had changed. She wasn't fully committed to her own skepticism anymore. We dropped it after that. Changed the subject. Talked about normal things, work, a movie Derek had seen, Nina's new apartment. But the conversation sat in the back of my mind like a stone at the bottom of a pond. Heavy. Immovable. Changing the shape of everything that settled around it. I went home that night and checked my ad blocker. Still working. No ads anywhere. I went to bed with the lights off for the first time since the game. I slept fine. Thursday was normal. Friday was normal. I started to think maybe it really was just a weird, hyper-targeted ad experience. Silicon Valley produces bizarre things all the time. Maybe some startup had blown through their seed funding on an experimental ad format that was too creepy to scale, and I'd been one of the unlucky beta testers. That would explain everything. It was comforting, in a way. Saturday destroyed that comfort. I was playing a match, an online shooter, nothing special. I'd been playing for about 20 minutes when the screen flickered. Just for a frame. Less than a second. I almost didn't notice it. But something about the flicker felt familiar. Like a channel changing. And then the ad was there. It wasn't in my browser. It wasn't in a sidebar or a pop-up or a banner. It was in my game. Overlaid on top of the match like a transparent layer, and then it solidified, pushing the game underneath it until all I could see was the ad. Find the monster in the room. My ad blocker was still running. I checked. Every filter was active. Every list was updated. The ad wasn't coming through my browser at all. It was being rendered directly on my screen, as if something had injected itself between my GPU and my monitor. The level loaded. A beach. It was beautiful, in a way that felt aggressive. Hypersaturated colors. White sand that almost glowed. Crystal water. palm trees casting long shadows in what looked like late afternoon light. And a woman standing near the shore, facing away from the camera, wearing a sundress that moved in a breeze I couldn't feel. I didn't want to play. I want to be very clear about that. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn off my computer, to pull the power cord, to throw the whole machine out the window if I had to. But my cursor was already on the screen. And the timer was already counting down. The woman turned around. She was smiling. A normal smile, at first. The kind of smile you'd see in a vacation photo. But then I looked closer, and the smile didn't stop. It kept going. Her lips pulled back past her cheeks, past where lips should end, and behind them were rows of teeth. Not one row. Rows. Like a shark, but organized differently, spiraling inward, getting smaller toward the back of her throat, which was visible because her mouth was open wider than any human mouth should open. I clicked on her. Correct. Plus 150 points. The next level loaded before I could close anything. A parking lot. Nighttime. Overhead lights casting those ugly orange cones of sodium vapor illumination. Cars parked in rows, most of them empty. The image was so detailed I could see water stains on the concrete, oil spots under the cars, a shopping cart with a broken wheel sitting at an angle near a concrete divider. And then the sound started. This is the part that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. The game had never had sound before. The first time I played it, all those levels, all those rooms, it was silent. Images only. Find the monster. Click. Move on. But now there was sound. Chewing. Wet, rhythmic chewing. Like something with a large mouth working through something soft. It was coming from my speakers, but it had a spatial quality to it. When I moved my head to the left, the sound shifted. When I leaned closer to the right speaker, it got louder from that side. As if the source of the sound was somewhere in the parking lot, and my physical position in my room corresponded to a position in the image. I moved my cursor across the screen. Under the cars. Behind the concrete pillars. Near the shopping cart. The chewing continued, constant, unbothered, and every now and then I heard something else underneath it, a low, satisfied humming, like whatever was eating was enjoying its meal. I found it under the third car from the left. Not the monster itself, just its shadow. A shadow that was too long and had too many joints, cast by the sodium lights onto the pavement. When I clicked on it, the shadow moved. It pulled itself under the car with a speed that shouldn't have been possible for something that size, and the chewing stopped. Correct. Plus 200 points. A message appeared below the score. Tips from the community. People rarely look up. I looked up. At my ceiling. In my actual room. I looked up and stared at the white plaster above me and felt my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. There was nothing there. Of course there was nothing there. But the game knew I would look up. It knew, because the tip wasn't for the game. The tip was for the player. I closed everything. Task Manager. Force quit. I shut my computer down by holding the power button until the fans stopped spinning. Then I sat in silence for a long time, listening to my apartment, listening to the building, listening for anything that sounded like chewing. The next morning, I called Derek. He didn't answer. I called Nina. She didn't answer either. I texted them both, "Call me when you get this. It's about the game." Derek called back around noon. "Marcus." His voice was wrong. Strained. like he was holding his phone too tightly. Something happened last night. The game came back, I said. It showed up inside my no. Something happened to me. In real life. He'd been leaving his office late. Around 11. The parking garage under his building was mostly empty, just his car and a few others on the third level. He'd been walking toward his car, keys in hand, when something grabbed his ankle. Not bumped, he said. Not brushed against. Grabbed. Fingers. I felt individual fingers wrap around my ankle, and they were cold, Marcus. Not cool. Cold. Like they'd been waiting down there for hours. He kicked free. Whatever it was let go easily, too easily, he said, like it had only been testing its grip. He stumbled forward, and that's when he heard the sound behind him. Shuffling. Fast shuffling. Like something moving on all fours across concrete, but the rhythm was wrong, too many limbs, or limbs that bent in too many places. It was fast, and it was getting closer, and Derek ran. He made it to his car. He got in. He locked the doors. He started the engine and peeled out of the parking garage so fast he scraped the side mirror on a concrete pillar. Did you see it? I asked. No. But Marcus, the parking garage. The lighting. The orange sodium lights and the concrete dividers and the empty cars, it looked exactly like the level you described. The one from the game. My blood went cold. Derek, I didn't describe the parking lot level to you. I only told you about the first time I played. Silence on the phone. Then how do I know what it looked like? He whispered. I tried calling Nina again. Straight to voicemail. I sent another text. No response. I told myself she was busy. I told myself she'd left her phone somewhere. I told myself a lot of things that afternoon, none of which I believed. I spent the rest of the day at a coffee shop. Public spaces felt safer, though I couldn't have told you why. Whatever was in that parking garage with Derek, whatever had been in those game levels, it existed in spaces where people were alone. Empty rooms. Dark parking lots. The gaps between where the lights reached. I went home as the sun was setting. My building is a 4-story walk-up. 8 units. I live on the 3rd floor, apartment 3B. I've lived there for 2 years, and I know what it looks like from the street at every time of day. I know which windows are usually lit up when I get home. I know the pattern. That evening, the pattern was wrong. Every window on my floor was dark except one. My bedroom. The light in my bedroom was on. I could see it from the sidewalk, a warm yellow glow behind the curtains. But I hadn't left any lights on. I never leave lights on. It's a habit, a small one, but consistent. I turn off every light when I leave. Every single one. I stood on the sidewalk and stared up at my window and felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child. The feeling that my home was not mine anymore. That something had gotten in while I was gone, and it was waiting for me, and it had turned on the light so I would know. So I would come up anyway. I thought about calling the police and telling them what? That my bedroom light was on? That I'd been playing a game I couldn't find on the internet and now I thought something from the game had gotten into my apartment? They'd send someone. The someone would check the apartment. Find nothing. Leave. And then I'd be alone again with whatever was actually there. I went up. The stairwell was quiet. My footsteps echoed on the concrete steps in a way they never had before, or maybe they always had, and I'd never been listening this carefully. Third floor. Hallway. My door at the end. Locked. Deadbolt engaged. Chain untouched. I unlocked it slowly. Pushed the door open. Stood in the doorway and listened. The apartment smelled normal. Looked normal. Living room dark. Kitchen dark. The only light was coming from the hallway that led to my bedroom, spilling across the hardwood floor in a long yellow rectangle. I picked up a knife from the kitchen counter. I don't own weapons. A kitchen knife was the best I could do. It felt ridiculous in my hand. Too light. Too domestic. But I held it anyway and walked down the hall. My bedroom door was open. The light was on. My computer was on. I had shut it down. I had held the power button and watched the screen go black and listened to the fans die. But now it was on. The monitor was glowing. The tower was humming. And on the screen, filling every pixel, was the game. Find the monster in the room. Final level. Boss battle. I stood in the doorway of my own bedroom, holding a kitchen knife, staring at a game I hadn't opened on a computer I hadn't turned on. The room looked exactly the same as I'd left it that morning, bed unmade, clothes on the chair, books on the nightstand. Nothing was moved. Nothing was disturbed. But the air felt different. Heavier. Like the room was holding its breath. I walked to the computer. The game was full screen. No taskbar. No title bar. No way to minimize or close it. The level hadn't loaded yet, just the text on a black background, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Final level. Boss battle. I reached behind the tower and pulled the power cord out of the wall. The screen didn't turn off. I stared at the cord in my hand. I stared at the outlet. I stared at the screen. The monitor was still on. The game was still running. The text was still pulsing. Final level. Boss battle. I pulled the monitor's power cord too. Pulled the HDMI cable. Pulled everything. The tower went silent. The monitor should have been dead, no power, no signal, no connection to anything. But the screen stayed lit. The game stayed active. The level loaded. I need you to understand what I saw. I need you to understand this clearly, because I've gone over it in my mind 100 times since, and I still can't make it make sense, and the not making sense is the thing that keeps me up at night. The level was a live feed. Not a photograph. Not a render. Not a static image. A live video feed, in real time, with slight compression artifacts and a frame rate that stuttered occasionally the way a webcam feed does. It was my bedroom. The feed was coming from my webcam. The little camera built into the top of my monitor, the one I'd never used, the one I'd never even thought about. Its indicator light was on, a tiny green dot that I'd never seen illuminated before. I was looking at myself. On the screen, I could see my own back. My own shoulders. The knife in my hand, hanging at my side. The bed behind me. The chair. The nightstand. Everything rendered in the slightly fish-eyed perspective of a cheap built-in webcam. Find the monster in the room. The timer started. 60 seconds. Counting down. I want to tell you I was brave. I want to tell you I turned around immediately, that I faced whatever was behind me, that I searched my room with the knife raised and my jaw set. But I didn't. I stood there, frozen, watching myself on the screen, watching the seconds tick down, and I could not make myself turn around. Because the feed was showing my room. My actual room. And somewhere in that room, according to the game, there was a monster. And I was standing in it. I was inside the level. The game had stopped being a game. 45 seconds. I made myself move. Slowly. I turned my head to the right, watching the feed on the screen as my image turned in sync. I could see the corner of my room, the bookshelf, the stack of old magazines I kept meaning to recycle, the shadow between the shelf and the wall. I looked at that shadow on the screen. It looked normal. It looked like a shadow. But I didn't look at the actual shadow. I couldn't. I kept my eyes on the screen, because looking at the room through the screen felt safer, felt like it maintained the barrier between me and whatever was in here with me. As long as I was looking through the camera, it was still a game. Still a level. Still something with a screen between me and it. 30 seconds. I scanned the room through the webcam feed. The bed. Under the bed, I couldn't see under the bed from this angle. The closet door closed, the way I always left it. The curtains still, no movement, no shape behind them. The ceiling, nothing. The floor, nothing. I couldn't find it. 20 seconds. I started clicking. The monitor shouldn't have been working, no power, no cable, but the touchpad on my desk was still responsive. I clicked on the closet. Nothing. I clicked on the bed. Nothing. I clicked on the bookshelf. Nothing. I clicked on every shadow, every corner, every possible hiding place I could see in the feed. Nothing. 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 10 seconds. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely control the cursor. I clicked wildly, the curtains, the door, the ceiling, the floor, the chair with my clothes draped over it. Every click returned nothing. The monster wasn't in any of the places I was checking. 5 seconds. The timer hit 0. The screen went black for 1 second. Then a message appeared. Hint, anywhere you click would be correct. I read it 3 times. My vision was blurring. My hands were numb. I read it 3 more times. Anywhere you click would be correct. The feed came back. My room. Me, standing at my desk, staring at the screen. The timer reset another 60 seconds, but this time, underneath the timer, new text, click anywhere to confirm. I moved my cursor to the center of the screen. My own image. My own back. I clicked. Correct. Plus 500 points. I clicked on the wall behind me. Correct. Plus 500 points. I clicked on the ceiling. Correct. Plus 500 points. I clicked on the floor. Correct. Plus 500 points. Every click was correct. The monster wasn't hiding in one specific spot. The monster was everywhere. The entire room was the monster. Or the monster was so close to me, so precisely positioned in my blind spot, in the space directly behind me where my body blocked the camera's view, that no matter where I clicked, I was clicking on some part of it. A new message appeared on the screen. Congratulations. You found it. Game over. Thank you for your data. The screen went dark. Really dark this time, the monitor finally behaving like the unplugged piece of hardware it was supposed to be. The green light on the webcam turned off. The room was silent. I turned around. There was nothing there. Nothing visible. My room looked exactly the way it always looked. Bed unmade. Clothes on the chair. Books on the nightstand. Shadows in the corners where shadows belonged. Nothing out of place. Nothing wrong. But the air was still heavy. The room was still holding its breath. And somewhere in the silence, so faint I might have imagined it, so faint I'd been telling myself for days that I definitely imagined it, I heard something. Breathing. Not my breathing. Mine was ragged and fast and catching in my throat. This was slow. Deep. Patient. The kind of breathing that belongs to something that has been still for a very long time and is very good at being still and sees no reason to stop. I left. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't turn off the light. I didn't lock the door. I walked out of my bedroom and down the hall and out of my apartment and down 3 flights of stairs and out of the building, and I didn't stop walking until I was 6 blocks away, standing under a streetlight, shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. I called Derek. Something was in my apartment, I said. Something was in my room. Come to my place, he said. Right now. I walked to Derek's. 14 blocks. I kept to the main streets, the ones with the most light, the most people. I didn't look behind me. Not because I was brave. Because I was terrified that if I looked, I would see something, and then I would know for certain, and knowing for certain felt like the end of something I wasn't ready to let end. Derek's apartment was bright. Every light was on. He'd pulled his blinds shut and pushed a bookshelf in front of his bedroom window. His laptop was open on the kitchen table, and he'd been reading about targeted advertising, psychological manipulation, RGs, alternate reality games, anything that might explain what was happening. The game was on my computer, I told him. I unplugged everything. The screen stayed on. It used my webcam. It showed me my own room and told me to find the monster. Did you find it? It said anywhere I clicked would be correct. Derek didn't say anything for a long time. I talked to Nina, he finally said. Earlier today. She's fine. She said she hasn't experienced anything weird. But Marcus, she said something that I can't stop thinking about. What? She said the data collection theory still makes sense. The game maps where humans look for threats. Then it teaches the threats where to hide. Where our blind spots are. The places we check last or not at all. And then she said, what if it's past the data collection phase? What if it's already using the data? What if it's already hiding in the places we trained it to hide? That was 4 days ago. I haven't been back to my apartment. I've been staying at Derek's. Neither of us has seen the game again, but neither of us has opened a computer either. We use our phones for everything now, and even that feels dangerous. Small screens, front-facing cameras we can't disable, microphones that are always listening. Nina called yesterday. She sounded different. Distracted. She said she'd been thinking about the hiding places, the ones from the game. The gap between the dresser and the wall. The space under the bed. The shadow in the corner of the ceiling. She said she'd been checking those places in her own apartment. Compulsively. Every time she walked into a room. And they're always empty, she said. Every time I check, there's nothing there. But Marcus, the tips from the game. People rarely look up. What if there are places I'm not checking? What if there are blind spots I can't see because they're my blind spots? The game was designed to find them. And now something knows where they are. I think about the beach level. The woman with the rows of teeth who stood in plain sight and smiled. I think about the parking lot and the shadow with too many joints. I think about the tip people rarely look up, and how I looked up at my ceiling and saw nothing, and how that was supposed to be reassuring but wasn't. I think about the final level. My room. My camera. My own back on the screen. The way every click was correct. Anywhere you click would be correct. If the monster is everywhere, if it's learned to fill a room so completely that there's no spot that isn't it, then finding it doesn't matter. Clicking on it doesn't matter. Knowing it's there doesn't matter. Because you're already inside it. I'm recording this from Derek's apartment. It's 3 in the morning. He's asleep in the next room. All the lights are on. I haven't checked the corners. I haven't looked behind the furniture. I haven't looked up. I'm not going to. Because the game taught me something. Not what it meant to teach me. Something worse. It taught me that looking is what makes it real. Every time I checked a room in that game, I was confirming that there was something to find. Every time I clicked, I was telling it, yes, I see you. I know you're there. And every time it said correct, it was telling me I was right. The game is over. My data has been collected. Whatever it was learning from me, from all of us, it's learned it now. There's a sound from the hallway. Derek's hallway. Soft. Could be the building settling. Could be the wind. Could be nothing. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to check. I think the game was right about one thing. The real monster in the room isn't hiding. It isn't behind the furniture or under the bed or in the space between the wall and the shelf. It's in the space you can't see. The space directly behind you. The space your body blocks. The space that moves when you move, that turns when you turn, that is always, always exactly where you aren't looking. And now it knows that you know. And it doesn't care. Thank you for your data. Game over. Or is it? Because here's the thing I haven't told you. The thing I've been saving because I don't know what to do with it. When the game ended, when the screen finally went dark and the webcam light turned off and I turned around and saw nothing, my phone buzzed. A notification. I didn't check it until I was at Derek's, hours later, hands still shaking, every light blazing. It was an ad. On my phone. The phone I'd never played the game on. The phone with no ad blocker because I'd only thought to protect my computer. A banner ad at the bottom of my weather app, small and unobtrusive, the kind you scroll past 1,000 times a day without ever really seeing. Find the monster in the room. New player detected. Tap to begin. And below it, in text so small I had to zoom in to read it, based on your location, we recommend starting with the room you're in right now. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and the screen cracked and the ad disappeared. But not before I saw one more thing. One more line of text, even smaller than the last, almost invisible against the white background of the weather app. 2 other players in your area are currently playing. I looked at Derek, asleep in the next room. I thought about Nina, alone in her apartment, checking corners. 2 other players. I don't know if they're playing voluntarily. I don't know if they were given a choice. I don't know if the game even needs players anymore, or if it's moved past that, if the data collection is complete and what's happening now is something else entirely. Application. Implementation. Deployment. The game trained something to hide in our blind spots. And now the game is making sure we have blind spots. Every room you walk into. Every shadow you don't check. Every corner you glance at and dismiss. Every time you look behind you and see nothing and feel relieved, that relief is the blind spot. The feeling of safety is the blind spot. The confidence that you're alone is the blind spot. The monster isn't in the room. The monster is the room. And you've been inside it this whole time. Game over. Anywhere you click would be correct.